Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, it's John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to part 4 of our 6-part Ixalan Full Set review. Today we're going to look at all of the red cards. Now we do have a playlist on the channel if you need to catch up. We looked at white, blue, and black so far. Tomorrow we'll be back with green, and the following day we'll look at the rest of the set. Now quickly before we get started, if you have seen the other videos, you kind of know what to expect here. We are going to look at every card individually, and we're going to first and foremost assess those cards in the world of limited, sealed, and draft. But beyond that, if I feel like a card has some potential for other formats like standard, we will definitely talk about that as well. Now, before we get into the cards, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to support us. It really goes a long way and helps. But you'll find our Patreon page linked below. We're actually really close to our next goal. You'll find some product links for Amazon products. Any purchases from Amazon, once you go through the links, we'll get a small percentage back. And then finally, Flipside Gaming also has a promo code for our viewers, which is really awesome of them. And currently, they're doing pre-orders for Ixalan and Iconic Masters. So check that out if you have a chance. Now, let's get into the cards. Angrath's Marauders. This is a pretty decent limited card, and it's a little expensive. It's 7, and it's not something I want to play in standard due to the expense and the fact that I do need other sources of damage aside from this for this to really be good and warrant the cost. But for limited purposes, it's actually probably first pickable in some packs. If you can have this last on the battlefield, a 4/4, and doubling all your damage with everything can be quite good. Could put away a game. Bonded Horncrest. This is a fine dinosaur to play. Like, you look at the drawback and you might be put off a little bit, like can't attack or block alone. But the whole idea is you play some low curve creatures that just enable this thing and you got yourself a 5/5 for 4. Sometimes it might get awkward if your opponent can control the board a little bit, but a lot of times it's just going to be good for you. Maybe not a real high draft pick, but a nice middle of the pack pickup that is very playable. Brazen Buccaneers. Okay, this is a haster with Explorer for 4. Sometimes it'll be a 3/3 haste for 4, which is actually really good. If it's a 2/2 haste for 4, hey, you still got to explore, and I'm fine with that. Maybe this doesn't make every build. It just depends on what I'm trying to do at the 4 spot, but I think this is very playable and very good for limited. Burning Sun's Avatar. This is actually a great limited card, easily first pickable in a lot of packs. Now, this is a 3 on color card, though, so keep that in mind. If you're drafting Naya Dinosaurs, for example, and at the end of the draft, you are a little shaky on if you can cast a 3 red and 3 casting cost card, then maybe you do skip this. I mean, don't try to force it. But as long as you can swing that casting cost, go for it. It's going to be great for you. It's a 6/6, doesn't have evasion, but when it enters the battlefield, you're doing 3 to target opponent and 3 damaged up to 1 target creature. That could be one of your own creatures if you want to turn on Enrage, which is cool with dinosaurs. Just overall, it's a big old beater. Economically, it feels good. It could see some standard play, maybe in some sort of ramp dinosaur Naya deck or something like that. Captain Lannery Storm. Okay, we're back to pirates, and you'll notice quickly here, red's all about pirates and dinosaurs. So we're back to pirates now. This one, of course, being a 2/2 haster for 3, I'm okay with 2/2s for 3 if they have haste. Like, I'm on board, and every time this attacks, I get a treasure token. There's a lot of different things you can do with treasure tokens. We saw that in a lot of the cards yesterday, and even this card has something to do with treasure tokens. So even if you don't need to color fix or ramp, you can use them to pump the power of this card. Seems pretty economical and very aggro. Aggro enough that it could see some standard play in an aggressive build, whether that's a pirate aggressive build or even just another type of aggressive build, and it's going to be a good pickup for you in limited too. Captivating Crew. I like this card a lot. Okay, you're paying 4 for 4/3, and just stats-wise, that's pretty good. You could even consider this a little over par, and then you have an ability attached to it as well, and that ability is a repeatable threaten effect. Yeah, sign me up. And as a pirate, that will matter some of the time too. So this is just generally a very good card for 4. And if you can pull off that threaten effect a couple times, that could really mess up your opponent. It's also going to make them think twice about what they can play. And that in itself is actually really good. Not to mention the fact there's some good sack outlets. We've been seeing them all week. Imagine stealing a creature, attacking with it, and then sacrificing it for value. Yeah, I love that type of play. All about Value Town. This is going to be a good pickup for you. Probably first pickable in some packs. I do think it's a little expensive, though, and conditional for standard purposes, but regardless, great limited card. Charging Monstrosaur. Okay, we're not messing around here. 5/5 trample haste for 5. Yeah, sign me up. This is for Spickable. Really, really aggressive dinosaur here with nice size behind it. Great economy. This is good enough to see play maybe in a standard Naya dinosaur deck or some kind of dinosaur ramp build. Next we have Demolish. This one's a reprint you're probably pretty familiar with. I usually don't main deck this card. I side it in if my opponent maybe has a really good non-basic land, like some of these transform cards that we've been seeing that have some good lands on the other side. Or if my opponent's getting super greedy on colors and I think I can pull them off a color, I'll side this in. Dinosaur Stampede. Here's what I like about this set. Really elegant design on all of these cards. Here's a card that works well with Pirates because Pirates are pretty aggressive with raid and everything, so giving all attacking creatures +2/+0 is pretty sweet. This also gives dinosaurs trample, so of course it works well with dinosaurs. Some big dinosaurs don't have ways to get their damage across consistently, like that 6/6 we just saw a few moments ago, right? So that's kind of nice. But you can even use this in a vampire deck. Vampires would love to have this. They go wide, they have lifelink, like the +2/+0. This could be a huge attack for them, so don't forget about them. Even though this is off color for that particular tribe, you could splash and still find some value here. So overall, just a really good spell if you're all about attacking in with some trampled dinosaurs or attacking in with some going wide strategies like vampires or pirates. Dual Shot. So here's another reprint. This is a cool addition here because sometimes you just basically side this in case your opponent's playing some 1 toughness creatures that matter, and maybe that's vampires or something else. But what's cool about this is it has a dual purpose this time around because you can actually hit your own dinosaurs to activate and rage, which is real sweet. Fathom Fleet Firebrand. Great 2-drop with upside. 2/2 for 2, and it's got the more expensive version of Fire Breathing, but you know what? That's better than nothing. I'll take it. Excellent 2-spot curve filler. Fiery Cannonade. This is instant. It's 3. Deals 2 damage to each non-pirate creature. This card's actually kind of awesome. And again, another card that crosses over well into different places. First off, great for pirates for obvious reasons. But you know what? How many dinosaurs have 2 toughness? There's a few of them out there, but really not that many. Your big dinosaurs that you care about aren't really going to be affected by this card. So it works really well in that build as well. This completely hoses some of the vampire strategies, so that's something to keep in mind too. So even if for some reason you weren't playing this, it would be a good sideboard option. So that could be a case where maybe you are concerned about this hurting you more than your opponent. There are cases where you could sit down to game 1 and realize, you know what, this is actually going to hurt my opponent more, then go ahead and bring it in, right? So yeah, the card's great. It's actually going to see standard play, I think. I could see it in the pirate deck, maybe even in the dinosaur deck, I don't know, to deal with some of these low casting cost aggro builds that are fast and have fast starts or something like that. So the card is just really good on all counts. Fire Shrine Keeper. This is part of a cycle. We've been looking at them all week. This one's okay. It's a 1-drop, and if I get a bunch of mana later, I can tap it, pay a red and 7, sacrifice it, and do 3 damage to 2 creatures. So, yeah, it's pretty good. It has Menace, too, so that's kind of nice maybe for some early damage to come across. So, I'd be happy to run this. It's just fine. Fire Cannon Blast. This is a fine sorcery 3 damage spell to a creature. Like, sometimes you'll be happy to run this. Sometimes you'll have better things if you're really lucky, but this is a very good card. And the raid ability, if you have a good line of attack, can actually take out a sizable creature like a dinosaur sometimes. Frenzied Raptor. Okay, here's a dinosaur that's a little lower on the toughness side, but it's a 3-drop. And you know what? If you're drafting Naya dinosaurs or something, you're going to have to really think about your early portion of the curve. And you need 2 drops, you need 3 drops. So whenever you can make them dinosaurs, like, why not? So this is going to be fine for a curve filler, especially in those decks. Headstrong Brute. Okay, now this is another aggressive red card, and some of these pirates are ready to get in the red zone. This is one of them. This one's a 3/3 for 3. It has Menace if you have another pirate, and the drawback, you can't block, but you know what? I'm okay with that. This is all about fighting. This isn't about blocking, right? I want to attack. I want those raid abilities. So yeah, I think this is actually standard playable in some sort of aggressive version of that pirate deck. And on top of it, it's very good for you in limited. Whether you have another pirate alongside it or not, it's still going to be a fine card for 3. A little awkward if you're on the defensive, but it can get back in there for some damage of its own. Hijack. All right, of course, this is a reprint. This can steal, though, for a turn anyway, an artifact or a creature. And I like that versatility. I like threaten effects. I like them in conjunction with sacrifice effects. There's plenty of them to go around. So yes, this is very, very playable in limited. And sometimes I could see myself even running a couple of these because these only cost 3. Hijack is pretty economical. Lightning Strike, another reprint, and yes, this card is amazing. I don't know what to say about it, right? Like, it's not Lightning Bolt, alright, fine, but Lightning Strike's still really, really good. 2 casting cost, instant, 3/2 creature or player. Yes, we've been missing something like this for a little while now. It's nice to see it back in standard. Fits right into Ramanap Red. It's a great upgrade into that deck, and just generally, awesome aggro card. You're going to see plenty of standard play in its lifetime, and also, it's probably first pickable in some packs of draft. Just a great card to have. Lightning Rig Crew. Okay, this one is actually a nice 3-drop. 0/5, gums up the ground, deals with some aggressive strategies. It pings every once in a while to your opponent, which is kind of nice. It's better if you have pirates. If you have pirates, wonderful. Like, you're definitely going to play this, but I'd even play this without any pirates in my deck and probably be pretty happy with it. Makeshift Munitions. Okay, here's a great sack outlet for both artifacts or creatures, so keep that in mind for Hijack. And it's very cheap to pull off, too, which is kind of nice. 2 to cast, doesn't do anything on its own, but you can activate it right away. This is another outlet for treasures. We're talking about payoffs for treasures, like there's some point where you just have a bunch of treasures and nothing to do with them. Well, this is something to do with them. It can help clear out some creatures and make a clear path for your creatures to get by. It can go right to the face. Nice versatility, cheap card, and a lot of good implications for your limited games. Nest Robber. Okay, here's another low curve dinosaur, and this one's hyper aggressive. 2/1 haster for 2. Sign me up. This card is going to be awesome for you in limited, and this will see standard play. Even if it's not in a dinosaur deck, it could just be in a regular old aggro deck. Otepec Huntmaster. This one is another way to get your dinosaurs out cheaper. We saw a card in white a few days ago that did that too. In conjunction with that, this is a fantastic way to power out some dinosaurs. So if you're in the dinosaur plan, you're going to play this card. You're going to be real happy with it. If you're not on the dinosaur plan, you're probably going to skip this one. It's not really that great, a 1/2 for 2. But those abilities, giving the dinosaur haste periodically and getting the stuff out quicker, fantastic for that draft build. As for standard, I think this is very playable in any sort of ramp deck that's trying to build up the dinosaurs. Maybe the Naya Dinosaur deck. Rampaging Ferocidon. Alright, this card is awesome. Here's the thing. 3/3 for 3 with Menace. This card can get in the red zone and fight on its own. It also turns off life gain. Life gain is one of the biggest threats you have to worry about when you're playing an aggressive deck. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, this deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. Okay, you could argue that, well, I don't want to take damage, but the whole point of aggro decks, and we've seen this many times in the past with cards like Ixalan and stuff, the whole idea here is you're racing. So yes, you're going to take some damage from time to time from your own stuff, but it doesn't matter because you're pouring on lightning strikes, you're pouring on 2/1 hasters, you're pouring on this guy, and you're just fighting. And if you're taking a few points of damage, your opponent might be even taking less damage if they're not playing as many creatures, but it doesn't matter because they are getting pounded by other spells. So that's the whole idea of this card. This is why it's great. This is easily going to see some standard play. This might even see some modern play. I think it's that good, especially turning off the life gain. Great sideboard tactic that just gets shut down from this card. It's not legendary or anything, which is nice. You can play it in multiples. Has a very reasonable casting cost. Easily first pickable too in draft. Fantastic card. Raptor Hatchling. A good card. Like, I'm happy to run this. A 1/1 for 2. It doesn't sound great, but if it takes damage, you're just exchanging it for a 3/3 trample dinosaur creature, and that's just fine with me. I'm happy with that. Makes your opponent think about their attacks and such, especially early on in the game. I mean, yeah, you can try to cheat this a little bit and try to build up its power toughness somehow, and then try to damage it and get the ability more than once. And sure, that could be good, but you don't even have to do that. The card's fine on its own. Repeating Barrage. This one's interesting. A card that is recurrable. You don't see a lot of these, especially that don't exile themselves, like after the second use or something. This card can keep coming back as long as you have the mana in the lines of attack to do it. Now, on its own, 3 casting cost sorcery. Deals 3 to target creature or player. A lot of versatility there. It's not an instant, but still good. But that raid ability, if you're flooded on mana, this gives you something to do in an aggressive build. Yeah, this thing is not messing around. Like, this is a very good limited card for obvious reasons. I mean, it would have been good without the raid ability, but it becomes great with the raid ability. And I think because of that raid ability, it's good enough for some standard play as well. Really, really scary card if you see this hit your opponent's graveyard. Rigging Runner. Nice aggro card here. This is probably not a turn 1 play though. You really want the raid ability, so keep that in mind. This is maybe more of a turn 3 play or something like that. But a 2/2 for a striker, like imagine it was a red and 2 for a 2/2 for a striker. Yeah, you'd probably play it. Now you do have some setup to do, but I think it's worth it. This could even see some standard play. I think it's aggressive enough to get there, and it's fine for you, definitely unlimited. Ryle. Okay, this is all about turning on Enrage and giving a dinosaur the trample ability for 1 turn. It replaces itself, and it only costs 1, so that's actually really good. So a really nice support card for dinosaurs, not for any build, obviously. If you don't have dinosaurs, you're not going to use this. But if you are all in on dinosaurs, you'll be happy to run this. Or even if you have a few good targets, it's still very runnable. So maybe a sealed deck that has a few good dinosaurs, I can still see running this. And yeah, you can get some real benefit out of it for just 1 mana. Rowdy Crew. Okay, here's a mythic. This is a very disappointing mythic to me. I'll tell you that right now. And again, maybe I'm going to be a little harsh on it because it's a mythic. I don't know, but here's my problem with it. Forecasting cost. Trample 3/3. When this enters the battlefield, I draw 3 cards and discard 2 at random. Okay, I am getting deeper in my deck. That's kind of nice. And if I have no cards in my hand, for example, then that's not the worst thing in the world, right? But if I have some maybe good removal spells in my hand or something like that and I draw this, I just don't even want to play it because randomly I could lose those spells. And really, how often are you really going to get the 2+1/+1 counters? It could happen occasionally. Maybe you pitch 2 lands or something. But for the most part, it's just complete variance. Like, you don't know, right? If it was always a 5/5 trampler, that'd be a lot different, obviously. Even if this was a 5 casting cost 5/5 trample and it had this ability attached to it, I would still be hesitant to play it, but I'd probably be more on board. The way it stands now, I think most of the time I skip it unless I'm really desperate for a 4-drop or I'm in a hyper-aggressive deck where I know I'm going to be basically pitching my whole hand right away. Then maybe the card becomes a little bit better. But yeah, it's just nothing special for me because a 3/3 trample for 4 just doesn't even feel good enough. Like, if it doesn't hit that random ability that will rarely happen, it's almost not worth your time. So I don't know. This one I'm just very disappointed in. Rummaging Goblin. Alright, this is a fine reprint, actually. This is where the term rummaging came from. 1/1, a little fragile, but you pay 3, and you can keep tapping it. Every time you tap it, you get to rummage. And that's great for red, especially if red's hitting too many lands and they're being aggressive. It's not as good for some builds, of course, depending on what you're trying to do. But if you're aggressive, this is a great card. Because of that, I do think this could see some play in standard and some aggressive builds at some point. But aside from that, it's a very serviceable card for you in limited. Alright, here's another mythic, Star of Extinction, and this is a fine board sweep for you for limited, very, very playable, easily first pickable. I don't want to cross this over probably into standard though, because I have other more economical board sweeps. Things like Hour of Devastation, Bachu's Last Reckoning, there's a lot of them right now. So yeah, I probably don't need this there, but this is just fine as a panic button if nothing else for you in limited. It also attacks a land, which could be relevant, deals with planeswalkers, which sometimes you don't have an answer for, and just generally, though, just doing huge amounts of damage to the creatures. I love the flavor and the art and everything. A little expensive, but you'll be happy to pay for it when you need it. Stormfleet Arsonist. This is an okay card for limited. Like, it's nothing super exciting, because your opponent sacrifices a permanent here. So, I mean, they can pitch an extra land or something. It's not going to hurt them that much. You're getting a 4/4 body, which is fine. Like, it's nothing crazy. This is one of those cards you play if you just need a 5-drop or you need something with a little heft to it. And if you don't, then you're probably going to skip it. This probably sees more playing sealed than draft. Stormfleet Pyromancer. This is another one that's kind of like, if I need a 5-drop, I'm thinking about it. Other than that, I might skip it. A 3/2 for 5, and yeah, when it enters the battlefield, if I had a line of attack, I can do 2 damage to a creature or player. And again, remember, these direct damage spells could be for your own dinosaurs, so sometimes there will be some more relevancy there, and that could make a card like this maybe a little bit better. But if I'm into dinosaurs, I probably don't want to be playing this at the 5 spot. There's probably a good dinosaur I could be playing. So, kind of is what it is. I think a lot of times this doesn't make your cut. Sun-Crowned Hunters. This is an okay dinosaur. I mean, it's not amazing. It's a 5/4 for 6, but the Enrage ability is kind of nice. So if you feel like you can turn that on consistently, then yeah, it's definitely worth it. And I think with that ability, it's easily worth the 6 mana. So nice common dinosaur to be able to run on the higher end of the curve. Sunbird's Invocation. Oh, red and your enchantments. This one, it's okay. Let me say this about it. Yes, there's times it will be good and it could be great for you, but I don't want to do this. I mean, paying 6 and doing nothing immediately with a card just does not feel good. That's just way too much to pay to do nothing. And then later on, it's high variance. Sometimes good things will happen. Sometimes not so great things will happen. So am I going to waste my 6th spot with this? No, even the dinosaur I just saw is better than this. So yeah, some people are gamblers, and at times myself included, and I wouldn't say I would never kind of get a whim to play this card or something, but logically I know there's just probably better things to play. Sure Strike. This one's another reprint. Very good combat trick, though, for red. Just 2 casting cost instant, first strike and the +3/+0. Really can surprise an opponent. Good to run one of these when you can. Swashbuckling. Okay, another aura that I don't hate. This one is a real cheap way to get some fast damage across, giving the creature haste. I mean, you could play this maybe on turn 3 on like your 2/2, tack in for 4 damage like early on. That could be really good for you. I mean, don't play into removal, right? Like, don't play this when your opponent's untapped. But early on, especially when they're tapped out, they just played like their 2/2. Yeah, I like it a lot, and it's definitely something I would play. It's another aura that I would actually play in my limited deck. Thrash of Raptors. Oh, this is a fine curve filler, just generally. 3/3 for 4, right on par for limited purposes. And then it has the ability, if you have another dinosaur, it gets +2/+0 and trample. So you can attack in for some extra damage, and that's kind of nice. It's a little fragile, but for 4, I think you're getting what you paid for here. Tilanali's a Knight. This is another just fine 2-drop, like a 2/2 for 2 with upside. Sign me up. I'll play these all day long. And this particular one sometimes attacks in as a 3/3 if you have a dinosaur. That's fantastic. Even if you don't, very playable and limited. Tilanali's Skin Shifter. Here's the downside of the card first. If you're behind, this is bad. This is a bad draw, because if you don't have a good line of attack, then this is doing nothing. If you just came off a board sweep, this is doing nothing. But if you're already winning, and you could win a turn or 2 faster and prevent your opponent from stabilizing, possibly, then it's good. It's also good in board stalls, so I do like it for those reasons. Because of that, I'll play it. It's not a card I'm going to be really excited about. I'm probably not going to first pick this over some other good uncommons or even commons in the set, but it is playable, and at times it will do some work for you. Because of the issues I mentioned, I don't really see it crossing over into standard. Trove of Temptation. This is an enchantment I actually like. Okay, a 4 casting cost enchantment feels pretty good to me for a couple of reasons. Now, the payoff here is you're getting treasure every turn. So, do you need that? I don't know, some decks might not need that badly, and they could skip this and just do something else, and that's fine. But if you have a good treasure payout, we've seen a few today, and we saw some yesterday too in black, or you're just concerned about ramping slowly into stuff or fixing colors, then this is a fine play. Here's what puts it over the top for me. That first part, it sounds like a drawback, but really it's not. Each opponent must attack you or a planeswalker you control with at least 1 creature each combat if able. Okay, in Commander is probably a drawback, so don't play it there. But in a one-on-one game, if your opponent knows Magic, they're going to attack you anyway if it benefits them. They will know it's time to attack. I'm going to attack that other player. But if they have a reason not to attack, then they won't attack. This takes that decision out of their hands. So look at it this way. If the attack is profitable, they're going to attack you anyway. So it doesn't matter if this card's in play or not. If the attack is not profitable, now you're forcing their hand to attack with one of their creatures, which could open up an opportunity for you. So, this card is a lot better than it appears. Keep an eye on this one. Definitely an interesting card for limited purposes. I'm not going to play this in standard because, again, I don't think it's doing enough for 4. But I think it's a lot better than it comes off for the world of limited. Unfriendly Fire, good limited, direct damage spell. Hits creature or player again, so that's kind of nice versatility. It costs 5, you're doing 4 damage. It's just fine. You'll be happy to run this. Vance's Blasting Cannons, which transforms into Spitfire Bastion. This is a good card. I mean, I like all of these transform cards we've seen so far. This one is good in a very specific deck, though, kind of like the white one was. This is good in an aggro deck. And I'm most excited about that first part here. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. If it's an on-land card, you may cast it. That's awesome for any sort of aggro deck that's running into too much mana. So if I'm casting this for 4, I'm probably already running into too much mana. So now I have this extra ability to, if I get mana on top of my deck, well, that's a little annoying, but I'm seeing another card down, so I can perhaps still have a play, and that's kind of nice. Now, if you do happen to cast 3 spells in one turn, you can transform it. That's not going to happen all the time, but you know what? That's okay, because the card itself is just fine. It's a little awkward that it's legendary, though. That's going to be really strange and maybe hold it back a little bit. But if it does transform at some point, the second ability is also very good too. I mean, just being able to every turn do 3 damage to a player or creature for 3 is decent. So it's just fine. And if you do transform it, then you could play the second copy on the front side, which is alright too. Ultimately, I think it's a little too expensive for the formats that might actually like it, which would be more of a modern burn deck. I think you're paying too much though in that case. Standard burn or standard aggro, maybe, but I think the legendary may hold it back there. So as far as limited goes though, if you're in an aggro build, yeah, I'd play it and be okay with it. It's not for every build. If you're like trying to do something like maybe ramp into dinosaurs or something, there's probably better things you could be doing with your 4 spot. But if you're being aggressive, it can be just fine for you. Wily Goblin. Yeah, here's the question. How bad do you want that treasure? A 1/1 for 2 on color, you have to want that treasure pretty bad. And sometimes you do. If you have things to do with treasures or you're concerned about ramp or color fixing, then yeah, run this and it might be okay for you. If you're not really that concerned, there's better things you could be doing. There's just better 2-drops. All right, with that being said, those are all the red cards. So we're making our way through the set. Tomorrow we're going to come back with all the green. And then the next day we'll look at all the multicolor and colorless cards. And then after that, we're going to do our pre-release primer that's really geared kind of towards new players. And the day after, we'll talk about the high value cards that are included in the set. So you kind of know what you're opening when you get to that pre-release this weekend. So with that being said, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.